A quick apology for the audio quality in the first 90 seconds of this interview. Google's AI determined that some random noise behind us in the NAMM show floor was a copyright violation, and the publisher involved was too lazy to bother to listen to our appeal. So apologies to our listeners and a big extended finger salute to publishers too lazy to do their job.
Welcome to Insights in Sound, where we talk to the people behind the scenes, behind the technology, and behind the music. People you may not know, but you should. And please check out getitinwriting.net/shows for a full list of our podcasts and YouTube series.
Welcome to Insights in Sound live from the noisy NAMM show floor. My guests are Brian Ali, who's officially not artist relations for Roland anymore.
Nope, it is strategic partnerships and collaborations, which of course involves plenty of artists.
Partnerships and collaborations. Whoa. Okay, that sounds so new agey.
Doesn't it though? Yeah.
And Dino Monoxelos, he is not artist relations either for Ampeg.
That's correct.
So we're three people who have done artist relations, either officially or unofficially, in some capacity. We know what the hell we're talking about, even though it doesn't sound like it, right?
These aren't the artist relations.
Yes, this is not your father's artist relations.
Exactly.
Or something like that, yeah. In all of our endeavors, we have run into a lot of situations where artists are looking to hook up with a company, right? First red flag is always...
They're looking to hook up with a company.
Thank you.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What is... Okay, this should not have to even be said, but the nature of the relationship needs to be symbiotic or it doesn't work, right?
Absolutely.
And is that not the biggest challenge that you guys find when people approach you?
Yeah, it's a business relationship. Just like, you know, if I'm going out looking for clients, it's an agreement. It's a business relationship. It's what can you do for us and what can we do for you, and it's going to be equal.
Yep. And we used to actually run into issues with some of our distributors who would constantly call our people endorsees. And no, it's such a misnomer because we're not endorsing the artist is endorsing our product.
100%.
And that is just exactly it. You know, if we have, and there have been times when we, and I know you guys have run into this too, when you will choose to not work with an artist, not because they're not great, but because maybe there's some other issue, whether it be political or social in some sense or another, where it's just not going to play right with your brand, right?
Yeah. I think that's where the relationship part comes in. We were just talking about this. You know, there are going to be times when it makes sense for any brand to engage with certain artists and times when it doesn't. And that's the two-way street. So if there's a finite amount of product, which is usually the case, you know, we don't get endless gear. You know, it's a great keyboard, so every band should get a free one. I don't disagree with that, right? But we may only get 10 to give away, and there may be a targeted market of here. And so we have to target that market, and that's where we're directed. So I think sometimes artists may take that personal. We've certainly experienced that. You know, sometimes intercompany may not understand why things go. I mean, there's always, you know, there can be high emotions when there's high stakes, you know, and this is an industry of passion, and a lot of people, you know, a lot of companies also are smaller companies without endless budgets, just like artists don't have endless budgets. And, you know, I think that's where the two-way street goes, and that's where the investment and the return have to make sense for both sides.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, especially with Ampeg too. I'll have an artist approach and say, I don't need anything. I don't need any gear. I don't need any tour support. I just want to be on your website, and I want that relationship. And, you know, and then it's, again, you get back to that conversation. Okay, so why do you want that relationship with the brand? Do you just want the association? Does it elevate your status as an artist to be associated with a brand? If so, then what do we, you know, as a brand, what are we getting out of this partnership outside of, you know, obviously, hopefully you'll go out and what we say evangelize the product or talk about the it's what are they bringing to the table other than the fact that they just want to be associated with a brand per se.
One of the things that we used to do, and I'm sure you have something along those lines too, is something of a tiered system of, how much exposure can we get from this artist? How much is this artist's exposure worth to us? And that's, how do you quantify that?
That's the $1 million question.
Yep.
You can quantify it in certain ways. There are different software programs that are used where you can take a look at their reads, clicks, and if they're, are they seeing an advertisement off an artist page and clicking all the way through to buy a product? Amazon has its affiliate program, which rewards artists that recommend products. So there are many ways to measure that, and I think those are obvious important metrics that a company's going to look at.
Is it easier now than it used to be?
Yeah.
It used to be.
It's easier to get the data now.
Yeah. Because it used to be just, are they on a label or not? Are they touring or not? Yeah.
And though even with that, sometimes those numbers can look great, but in an ad there might be a particular vibe that they're looking for, and I think sometimes feelings get hurt. That's the worst part, right? You want to keep everybody happy, and that would be with do's and don'ts. The topic here, I think, I can never stress it enough. If you're forming a relationship, and this goes for companies too, like you said. That's the most important part. Get the relationship solid first, because then the interactions follow, and they're meaningful that way. And I think anybody that approaches a company to learn about the company, to express their interest and passion, and say, hey, I'd love to do this together. We could share audiences, we could exchange this, we could do that, whatever it is. There's going to be more interest than just, can I have something?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting point though, because it is so much different now. Are you looking more at exposure? Are you looking at touring? What kind of metrics are you looking for in terms of the people that you are associating with?
That's a great question. It's going to depend on the product, I think, and the brand.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
In the case of Ampeg, there's so many variables. We're a Bayesian company, so in a lot of cases, it's a matter of, it comes down to simple statistics of, okay, so you're going on tour. What's the stage setup? Is my gear going to be on stage? Is it going to be underneath the stage? If it is going to be underneath the stage, how are you going to make that known that you're using Ampeg gear, without it physically being on stage? That type of situation, I run into that all the time when somebody approaches us.
Sure.
And you got to ask those questions. It's not just being a jerk about it, but it's like, with clean stages and now set design. I had an artist say, "Yeah, no gear on stage," and it's not even the artist's choice. They hired a set designer, and everything is underneath the stage at that point.
Which is much better for the front of house person, for the for the production in general. So sure, I understand that. But now in that case, we don't have the media that we used to have.
Right.
We don't have the magazines that we used to have, the interviews and stuff like that. How are you able to milk that?
Well, there's more. In essence, there's much more media. And so it's just different, And I think touring is one thing, right? And certainly their websites or their social media is another. But how an artist or a musician in a band brands themselves personally is now incredibly important to brands also.
Bingo.
And
that's what I'm looking for.
we make video products also at Roland, so we work a lot with content creators. And when you go around that audience and those creators, each one, trust me, when they start making a living at it, each one has a brand, they have a personality, they have a color scheme, they have a font, they have, they run these like companies. And I think if musicians approach today's companies the same way, and many of them do, we have some that are creating backstage experiences and fan engagements, and those are the things, when shared, can greatly improve that experience and that relationship for both sides.
Yeah.
So you're finding artists in general are much more sophisticated about marketing.
Oh,
now.
absolutely. Yeah.
Forget about going to music school. Take a marketing course.
Yeah.
But you bring up a very good point. It's like they have to run their own enterprise. It's not the days of just being a rock star anymore. You have to know your brand, identify your brand, and sell it, and really sell it.
Yeah, and in that sense, you're selling. They're becoming an extension of your marketing department to a certain extent. And so again, you've got to be even more careful with how they're messaging and what they're messaging.
Yeah, that runs into a whole nother gray area that you just got to be careful. And it's I mean, we run into situations where Ampeg obviously being owned by Yamaha, and the broader scope of things is like I've been told many times, like we have to be very careful because even though Ampeg is a rock and roll brand, it's still associated with a much larger brand, and we gotta be careful how we portray that, in our association. And so yeah, you want to. I'm trying to find the words how to convey this, but you want to partner with somebody that has that same brand value,
which is harder and harder to do, I think, because there's so much of a diversity, and that's something that, I think it's difficult also to, when you're approached by, let's say, I don't want to say lower level artist, but an artist who is not at that point in their career yet where they're really well known. Sometimes you have sort of a sense, this person's going to be big. We may be wrong, but that's our job, right? Is to be able to determine that. Is it now harder to work off of that spidey sense of, I think this person's going to be huge because you don't have the data anymore? I mean, the data makes it almost more, it makes it more clear cut. Does that make it harder?
Well, what do you define though? Because you may have somebody that is a weekend warrior, but they've got 500,000 followers on YouTube.
That's what I'm saying. It's still, there's a lot of gray area there, isn't there?
I mean, there can be, and I think that's where I go back to it every time. That's where that relationship makes so much sense. Yeah. I had meetings just yesterday where with really high profile known influencers, but the discussion wasn't about their popularity or, Roland's brand. It was all about just how to work together to increase an audience, create a better experience. And those are the dialogues that I think drive both sides forward. Those are the ones that will interest any brand, and I see more and more of that. And I think the more we all think that way, the more we'll move forward.
So is that sophistication, that degree of sophistication, creeping up to even older artists? Because older artists, more established artists, they're used to kind of having their people and having things done for them,
It depends on the artist.
Yeah,
but
definitely
of
depends
course.
on the artist. Yeah.
I would say the older ones that have the means are getting it done for them, right? The ones that don't, some are on board, some aren't. But one of my last live streams that I did with an artist was for a 70s artist, who was out there kicking it. So, hey, it's.
Yeah. Now the whole live streaming thing, is that also impacting your decision-making process?
More so during COVID, right? I think that was a vital way to reach audiences during COVID. Right now there's an incredible demand for live streaming. So anybody listening, artists, if you're live streaming savvy, all right, and you know how to work the gear when you're not playing, get behind the gear, because there's an endless need for people to get out there and work live streaming equipment to do just what we're doing right now. So those that have that skill set, they become very interesting to us too.
Yeah, and it's funny because, I consider myself kind of archaic in terms of learning the new technology, and I don't know how many times an artist will, I'll post something on my Instagram account, and an artist will call me and say, no, put that on your stories or put it on your reels. Don't put it on your timelines. Like, oh, okay.
Hey, Grandpa.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, listen, pops. I have young kids that do that for me too. It's like,
sure, yeah. But I think that does really, it's important for us to be able to gain that understanding of, when you run into an artist that is, as you say, so well-rounded that they not only understand their art but their brand. That's got to be an asset to a certain extent.
Absolutely.
Those are the people you really want to wrap around.
100%. Yeah. And you see those artists more and more than you do others, used by more and more brands, and their brand goes more and more, and people scratch their heads, it's because they've got it put together. And I think putting together that whole package as an artist of how you find the market, you know, be true to yourself. You know, find your brand, stick with it. And I think the ones that do that, we know then what we're getting when we're seeking out people to work with us on a launch or work with us on a promotion. You know, brands that have a great identity. You look at, you know, even some of the greats, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis. You think of the hat, you think of the J and the L.
Sure,
They're
yeah.
branded, right? Chris Lordell's, and we all think of the Swiss flag, right? You think of some of these great producers and mix engineers. They have brands, you know, and artists need brands too. Any band we name, we can name a million, you're going to think of the logo, right? So I think the more and more we do that in today's age, when everything is such visual stimuli, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So do you get approached by, when you get approached by an artist who is not that savvy, but they're really, really great? Conundrum? What's
Manager, not
scale?
managed. If they don't have a manager, there's a handful of managers that I'm really fond of that I think do an amazing job. Still working to develop artists, you know, in that old school way, and not just throw them out to the wolves.
Wow.
So I will usually call a handful that make some introductions. You know, we don't sign anybody. We're not a label. Right?
Sure, of course.
Make the intros and give everybody a fighting chance.
Yeah.
You know, or the other part happens where a lot of things, like what happens in my case a lot, is I'll get approached by a management company that's managing a band I've never heard of.
Yeah.
And they're not, you can tell they're fishing for manufacturers. You know, he's really interested in your brand, so and so. And I will usually say, well, you know, what are we looking for? Is he looking for gear? Is he looking for a relationship? You know, and you can kind of fish those out pretty easily.
Yeah, it's definitely more you get it from the manager than the artist.
Yeah.
The bullshit factor?
You know, in our instance with the product for us, it's usually they're trying to get the studio sound to the stage, right? So once you get out, you know, because that's always, everybody wants to hear it just as it was on the album, which,
right,
you know, it's unfair,
right?
It's unfair, but, you know, but they get it there, right?
Well, that's why so many people perform the tracks now.
I know. Yeah. I miss the jams.
I know. Well, and that's, you know, I think that's part of it is you're looking for somebody who is genuine. You're looking for an artist, and that's, you know, I've always been kind of fascinated by that because we now have, as you say, artists who are way more sophisticated in terms of marketing, but you're still looking for the art, man. You're still looking for something that, you know, I mean, I don't want to sign somebody just because they're selling product. So do you find yourself in a situation sometimes where you kind of over a barrel and you have to sign an artist that you don't necessarily respect musically? How's that play out for you?
Musically, that has no bearing.
Yeah.
Honestly, we're vanilla about that. My personal music taste can't weigh into those decisions.
Yes.
And it really goes down to, you know, what we said is there's an ask and there's a need. Certainly, I'm sure in your instance in mine, you know, there may be a call from up above that comes down and says this product has to go to this artist.
Sure.
You know, honestly, then the product goes to the artist and we move on. It doesn't. I don't overthink that. I think that's that's our role in the company. You move on.
Well, and that's what we found too. But the challenge then was, does this artist speak to our brand? You know, and
if they spoke to one of my bosses, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. I guess I'm you know, Ampeg probably gives me a lot more leeway on that because knowing that I'm a bass player, knowing that I was an endorsing artist or a clinician prior to taking on artist relations, I think they put a lot of trust in that for me. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what music or taste of music I like.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Because that has no bearing on it. You got to be kind of neutral in that respect. But you know, it comes down to a perfect case in point is I had and I won't say who the artist is, but they're getting big. So, gentleman reached out to me last year, wasn't looking for free gear. He wanted to buy a rig. He just wanted artist pricing. Sure, we can help you out. What do I got to do to get on the website? Well, let's take the gear.
one step at a time.
Yeah, let's one step at a time. And then over the year, he's, you know, maybe once a month, he would send me a couple of clips of the gigs that they're doing. Selling out, you know, 2,500 seat.
Who's courting you?
He's courting
Absolutely.
me. But he's showing me like this is where you're like he's doing what not even what I'm asking, what I'm expecting.
Taking the initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The other day, I told him this story actually. We had a conversation the other day. I was home. I was picking my daughter up from college, and whenever she gets in my truck, she commandeers the radio. She takes her iPhone, she puts it on, and there's the artist. I was like, "Oh, you like this?" She's like, "Dad, he's amazing." Okay. And I told the bass player this. He goes, and he was floored that, my daughter is feeding me. Like my validation. I joke with my kids. I'm an old man. My validation comes from my kids. A 27-year-old and a 19-year-old daughter. And a lot of times.
Old.
What's that?
And they're both old.
And they're both old too. Yeah. But a lot of times if it's an artist in question, and again getting back to that, just because I don't know who they are, doesn't mean it's not. They're not.
Yeah,
they're not.
I'm with you there.
Yeah, it's like I'll
exactly.
ask people like, "Hey, do you know this?" Oh yeah, dude, they're huge. Oh, okay, I guess I am that old.
We're both fortunate to have the right staff in place. They
Yeah.
can help us on that one.
Exactly.
Right?
have
Have
people
your
for that.
20-somethings in place.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think also with that, there's an inherent there's a place for a lot of the emerging artists right now within that. The ones that have that ability to get online, create great content, who may not be yet on the stage making content. With us, there's a huge portion of just the product advertising that includes that. When it comes to we're going out with the artists on the stage and we're doing that kind of content and that level of engagement, that can be more. It can be more discerning. I think I have more leeway on the branding side and the artist side to find those developmental stories and bring those along. We always have some of those. I think every brand has some of those. It keeps it grounded, right?
I mean, for me, it's a lot easier. Being Ampeg, I inherited a 70-year-old brand that has a legacy and a history. So
Yeah, they've done a few things.
yeah, they so I inherited an amazing artist roster too. That kind of goes back to the relationship conversation. It's like when Ampeg gave me the job, the previous artist relations manager had moved on, and they came to me and they said, "We go to NAMM, we see you talking with all these artists, so you'll be good at it." It's like, I know nothing about artist relations. I know about artists and I know about my relationships with those artists, but in terms of turning that into like quantifiable number, I know nothing about that.
The marketing aspect.
But it comes down to like now, when we're working on a project and I need to have an artist come into the office or we're doing a live stream, it's, hey, we're doing this on next Monday. Would you be interested? I don't have any budget for it, but absolutely, whatever you need, we're all set. And that's where the relationship comes in. It's like for Dino, yeah dude, whatever you need, buddy. I'll but it's reciprocated. It's like, okay, well, so and so's in Europe. They're doing 10 dates in France and they need a backline. I make a phone call and the rig is there for them. Because you did me a favor. It's not even like keeping track of favors. It's friendships. It's friendships. It's family.
100%.
Yeah. And that, sometimes that's a little bit of a challenge because you have this sort of gray area of it's business, but you are a personal friend of mine, or you have become a personal friend of mine through this relationship. It's like, dude, I'm going to cover you.
It's hard not to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like, how do you say no?
And the way I always introduce people on the roster is they're part of the Ampeg family. This person is family. I would be, if they're in Boston, there's a good chance they're going to be sitting at my dinner table on a night off, having dinner with me and my family. So they're family.
Like, when you're working with somebody who's gone from, act to act,
exactly.
high times and low times, had
Yep.
married or divorced or kids born, and likewise, they've been through everything with you. You can't then suddenly, if you take another position, or they don't just disappear.
Right.
No, and in
right?
fact,
These are lifelong friendships,
Yeah.
and that's the way we approach them. Is do we want to be with this person? Do we want to work? Can we work together? We don't always have to get along. We're not always going to be on the same page with the same product.
But they should
That's
be
fine.
a good hang.
You know? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in the flip side of that too, there's been times where, we'll give them a certain assignment. Like, hey, we just came out with this new pedal. I'm going to send it to you. Would you mind doing a couple of social posts? A week goes by, nothing. 2 weeks goes by, nothing. 3 weeks goes by. Hey, dude, just do me a solid, because my boss is on my back and he's waiting to see that social post. Would you mind doing that? And so sometimes you gotta, just like with my brothers. Sometimes I gotta go up and poke them in the ribs and say, hey, you said you were gonna do this for me. So
Yeah. But for the most part, do you find that the artists are more conscious now of reciprocating in that sense?
Yeah, for the most part, and I think when they don't reciprocate, it's got to be in the back of their mind, like, oh shoot, I told Dino I'd get this to him. I gotta,
We both hesitate because I think the answer is the ones we're working with you. And so do we for them.
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
And that's
exactly.
the thing. I mean, that's the honest to God truth.
Well, it's like any other relationship. You got to maintain it.
Yeah.
And you got to maintain it on both ends.
Yeah, and they, I mean, like you said, it comes back to they know their brand, they know their responsibility, they know, it is a business relationship too. That it is that, we're family, but I do have obligations that, and a lot of times it's not, something I blame it on my boss. I'll come right, it's like, hey man, the bean counters are like, we gave you this amplifier. Bean counters are asking me, where's and that's not making it up. It's like,
no, that's not really making it up.
It's like, hey, listen,
not,
we put out $5,000 worth of gear on this store, and we haven't really seen much in terms of social return. So, it's in the back of their mind. Like Brian was saying, at least the people that we work with,
Yeah. So being approached now, you're still approached on a regular basis, both of you, I'm sure. So let's
I'm going to
get
hit
on
Brian up after.
Me too. He's got the shit, man. So let's give some advice. People who are thinking about, wow, man, I'd really love to be involved with this company. For each of you, what's your first red flag of like, no way, and conversely, what's your green flag?
I don't have a lot of no ways. I think we get approached in so many crazy ways, and there's so many diverse personalities that I'm always going to hear the pitch, right?
Yep.
But I would say, the best advice I could give, we talk a lot about relationships. I won't beat that horse to death. But know your brand and know what you're after. If you're chasing this for a career, or you're chasing this for a second job, or if this is a meaningful source of income or a commitment in your life, then you need to know what brands make sense to you, and those brands should mean something to you, because that will come out in your content, right? If you're a guitar player, don't go see drum companies, because they might give you sticks or something, right? And you'd be surprised how many people will go outside the categories and just the asks keep coming and coming, and it's
Really?
Yeah, there's it's a finite amount of gear that gets placed into this category of gifting and seating and things like that. And,
Sure.
and so if you really know your brand and what you're passionate about, that will come through in your ask with the companies that you're going after. And likewise, we do the same. We really have a target audience, a target market for a given product. And don't take offense if it's a no on that one. Come back. Keep coming back. There's nothing wrong with that, This is definitely an industry of the squeaky wheel, right?
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I guess, same thing. I probably have a couple of red flags, and one of them being just being overbearing. Don't car salesman to me. It's like chances are, and I will say, again, the bass playing community is a much smaller community. There's a really good chance I know you, or through 7 degrees of separation, I know who you are. So don't oversell yourself.
Which is a problem with a lot of artists now, knowing enough about marketing just to be dangerous.
Yeah, and keep in touch. Let me know what you're doing, even though the first answer might be no, or the 10th answer might be no. Again, we're always trying to help people out.
You got to bob and weave.
Yeah, you know, it's not like I don't want to work with you, or you're a bad person, or I don't want to help you out. We always want to help people out. We're all musicians. You know, it's just, can I help you out, and can you help me out? I think the other red flag is, and I'm going to get a lot of flack from this from a lot of my bass playing buddies, but when I see their Facebook posts or their Instagram posts, and there's 100 hashtags of every brand that they represent,
Oh yeah.
it's kind of like, now that's what I call the NASCAR syndrome. It's like you're putting every manufacturer that you and there's nothing wrong with that. We want, you know, of course we want it to be represented on your page, but at that point to me it just kind of seems like you're stockpiling brands. Like it's almost a contest to see how many brands we can
It's
get.
not that targeted message we're talking about.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
where is your focus? It's kind of the.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, it's like dating. You know, you're not going to bring up the dates, the names of all of your other dates if you're.
Sadly, we can't date 5 people at the same time
Exactly,
at the same
exactly.
night
You know,
in front of each other.
It's expensive too. You know.
It would be,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Picking up those dinner bills, you know. But really, you know, I think you're right. I think if I'm doing a post about a gig where I used Ampeg, there's no reason to tag all of the other companies I endorse.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know, like, and I'll do it in my post. You know, if I'm taking a post of my gear and there's, you know, an MTV bass and an Ampeg amp and some cables, those are the brands that get mentioned in the post.
And they work together in that
course.
sense. Yeah, they're not competing brands. So for you guys, basically, at this point, you're not really doing this anymore. Are your companies still doing this kind of a, shall we say, tiered approach to artists?
Yeah,
Yeah?
we certainly are.
Yeah.
Roland, when I established a global artist relations program for Roland in 2017 and moved over to branding sometime during the COVID process. So there is still Roland artist relations offices around the world in LA and Nashville and London, and there is still dedicated staff to focus on that. And then my
Nice.
team and I, we focus on literally branding, brand collaborations. I'm wearing one right now, so we got the Beat Junkies going on today.
Oh,
They
there
just
you
dropped.
go. All right.
Shameless promotion.
Pride of colors.
Thank you, Beat Junkies. Right. So you know, there's other ways to work with brands, and here's a fun one. So everybody at NAMM hopefully will go to rolandlifestyle.shop and buy Beat Junkies clothing. Can I promote?
So
Always
Roland-
ask after, right?
Yeah.
See what we learn from artists.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so the Roland booth is going to be inundated shortly after this goes live.
I hope
Yeah.
so. I hope so. It's good stuff.
Awesome, awesome.
I'm sure the Ampeg booth will be too. That's,
Well,
Absolutely.
Always, as a rule.
you know, yeah, it's.
Looks like a good show. It's busy.
Busier than I expected, yeah.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you for being my guests. Brian Ali.
Thank you, Daniel. It's a pleasure.
He called
Dino
us
Monoxelos.
gentlemen.
I know.
That
It's
was
the only
his first
time,
time.
right? That was just for
Right.
the cameras.
Just for the exactly.
No, thank you for having
Yes,
us.
thank you. This is
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Hey, I'm Daniel Keller. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join us each week for Insights in Sound.